I could have uploaded this video sooner, but I wasn't happy with the commentary. It was way too negative in my opinion. And while I don't like this chapter very much, there are some good things to point out about it, and I feel like I should focus more on that. Whereas with the previous commentary, it was like 95% negative shit. Anyway, click. Chapter 1-2, Inhuman. Okay, so firstly, Dewey and Malcolm are both inhuman. But when you have a chapter title like that, it's usually to evoke the idea like, what? Somebody is inhuman? What horror? But, you know, we have inhuman characters already, so it's just kind of weird. So our chapter opens up with Bram following Dewey around, being all like, dude, I'm sorry I yelled at you even though you stole all my food, ate it, and cost me tons of money, and will potentially cost me more money because now I have to feed you. You know? Even though Bram is totally justified in getting mad at this fucking piece of shit dog that ate all of his food, he's the one apologizing, and I am personally not fond of this. I get the impression that the scene was meant to be like, oh, you know, they get along, you know, sort of developing their characters, becoming more kind to each other and shit. But it doesn't work that way for me personally. Anyway, Bram is surprised that Dewey can understand human language, despite the fact that he just met an animal person who can understand human language. I don't feel like Dewey's behavior would be all that far-fetched in this setting. But anyway, lo and behold, Bram deciding to play fetch with Dewey in the middle of a dark fucking forest was not a good idea, because now he's gotta deal with this chub. With the stupidest looking face ever, by the way, but, you know, I think that's supposed to be the point. Guest made a really... like, he really went all the way with making these bandits seem as generic and just, like, one-dimensional as possible. Like, even by Fire Emblem standards. Like, that guy just attacks us on his own, and he's like, oh, the reputation and shit. But anyway, positive things, Mark. Positive. This bear guy looks fucking cool. He looks a little flat, but I mean, holy shit. Look at all that detail in the fur. It's amazing. And he's missing an eye. I don't know why the fuck he's just got a scar there. You'd think there would be, like, an eye patch maybe, or, like, a hole, but still! Anyway. Really cool looking portrait. Both of these guys look pretty cool. The bear dude's like, oh, humans are so fragile and easy to manipulate. And, I don't know. I'd like to think that you're no better. I'm sure that that will be the case at some point. And if not, then I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those stories where it's just like, humans are bad and everybody else is good. You know, because animals can't do any wrong. They wage wars against each other and shit, but they can't do any wrong. You know, they have to do that because humans just put them in such a bad situation. Oh yeah, Bram's line here where he's like, the bandits actually came up with a strategy. I actually thought that was pretty funny. That got a little chuckle, a little chortle out of me, if you will, if you want to use fucking pretentious ass words. I love using big words, because I don't know. Part of it is because I like using precise language, but the other is just that it sounds fucking pretentious, and I don't know, I like sounding pretentious. Anyway, so remember how in the previous chapter I was like, Malcolm and co. don't need to have the scene where they establish that they're gonna help Bram out. Well, case in point. They show up here, they announce they're gonna help, and he brings two other dudes with him. You know, the guys from the previous chapter's ending. And if that wasn't enough explanation on why Malcolm are helping, you can have Bram interact with Malcolm in this chapter, and Malcolm will straight up explain it. So there you go. You could totally remove a lot of the ending scene from the previous chapter, and nothing would be lost. Anyway, so as you can see from the map, we have bees. This is a new class, really innovative. I gotta hand it to Ghast. He's really coming up with all these, like, crazy ideas to put in his hack. And, like, while some of the gameplay ideas kind of fall flat, I do think that this is much needed innovation in the Fire Emblem community. Fire Emblem hacking just does not innovate enough. And I feel like we need to tear down the doors for that, because trying to make a conventional Fire Emblem game is hard, and we could possibly find better solutions, or just better ways to do it. So, I mean, that's one reason, but also, as much as I like the normal Fire Emblem formula, you know what, I'm totally okay with the normal Fire Emblem formula. I don't know. It's just good to have some innovation. But anyway, this chapter starts you off in the middle of, like, an ambush. You got bees, you got enemies coming after you. The bees are technically not enemy units. They will attack anybody because they're like the Purple Alliance or whatever. But it is worth noting that they will prioritize characters who are easy to pick off. Characters who have low HP or have low defense. So you do need to strategize accordingly. They will attack anybody, but they will prefer to attack weaklings and people who are easy to pick off. Just like the enemies. Now, as cool an idea as this is, that you're introducing all these horrific creatures alongside our enemy units, I will say that you put us in a really, really kind of unfair spot at the beginning, because we're surrounded by all these enemies, and yes, you can quote-unquote strategize based on how the bees will attack anybody, but here's the thing, you cannot predict how each enemy phase is gonna play out. What if one of your dudes gets hit, and then suddenly all the bees and shit fly over the trees and shit and prioritize that dude? Or what if you expect somebody to get hit, but they don't, and then that ends up drawing the rest of the enemies and bees away from them? In addition to that, some of my characters die really easily, like the mage, for example, and of course the thief. So if they get hit by anything, really, they're kind of screwed. So there is a bit of RNG in this chapter, and I don't really like that. Now that said, once you get past this initial rush, which lasts about 1 to 3 turns, the rest of the chapter is easy. But, I mean, that's also a problem, because it starts out way too hard, and then it gets way too easy afterward because the rest of the enemies are just bait and switch. Now, in my first few strategies, what I did is I was like, okay, let's head to the top right, because there's not that many enemies over there, and we'll just let the bees and the enemy units just kind of kill each other, and then let myself clean up afterward. Now, because I didn't expect the boss fighter dude, the dude with the fucking dumpy-ass facial expression and shit, because I didn't expect him to come from over there, and as far as I'm concerned, there wasn't necessarily a sign that he was gonna come from there, especially since the bandits came from all over the place. I got taken off guard by him, and he ended at least one of my run-throughs, which I found kind of frustrating. I didn't really feel like I had any way to prepare for that. Aside from those things, though, the chapter's not all that bad. Now that I'm done talking about the gameplay, let's talk about the cutscenes, I guess. So I wasn't fond of the opening cutscene with Bram apologizing to Dewey, because Bram is totally justified in getting pissed off at Dewey. Now that said, I do like the characterization that Bram gets throughout the chapter and near the end. Near the end of the chapter, he establishes that he's a fucking badass, and that you should not fuck with him, and he has no patience for people who fuck around. Which I enjoy. Also, this boss dude has a red stamp, which is basically a red gem. I don't know how a stamp could sell for as much as, like, a fucking rock or a diamond or whatever, but there you go. Back to what I was saying. Bram gets a couple of endearing conversations with the other characters in the Interact events, and they're nice. I can't say the same for the new characters that were introduced, Tyron and the fucking fighter guy, whose name I keep forgetting. Because all they do throughout, like, all 3 of their conversations with each other is just shit on each other and bicker. And if you're gonna have 3 conversations, you need to have them do something different with the characters. Like, maybe one they're bickering, maybe one they're showing how much they actually get along, and that despite their bickering, they don't actually hate each other and shit. Maybe one, they're just like, oh, Dewey's cute, how about we raise him to be a fucking Jedi, you know? Anyway. So, right there, Dewey actually is sniffing out the boss to reveal where he is. I mean, it's convenient, but it wasn't necessary. I mean, but you know what, that's fine, that's fine. That gets a thumbs up for me because that's convenient, and that is considerate of the player. Yeah, so I'm gonna say that is totally fine. Oh, something I forgot to mention about the gameplay is that at the start of the chapter, you have all these interact events between the characters, well, the talk events, and you also have these houses. And there's really no convenient time to really do that, to like visit the houses and talk between the characters until after the initial rush, and consequently the difficulty is gone. I felt like what you could have done is you could have put the player in a more safe spot at the beginning of the chapter so that they could look at, for example, this hint right here. This person tells you, oh, fire is strong against the bees, which is a helpful hint, though I will say it is redundant. But anyway, the point is that you could have put the player in a safer spot where they could go into these houses and get hints about how to play the chapter, instead of, you know, visiting them, like, because, like, here's an example. So, you want to tell the player that the bees are weak against fire. Well, that's fine and dandy, but there's really no safe spot to receive that hint. Because, you know, and by that point, you will have already figured out that the bees are weak against fire, because, like, the bees are everywhere. And naturally, you're going to attack them indirectly because they have a lot of speed and they poison you. So, here's what the player is normally going to do. They're going to have the mage dude ready to attack the bees. They're going to notice the flashing icon of the tome and be like, oh, okay, so fire's effective against bees. So not only is that hint not, you know, necessary, because it's intuitive enough to be like, oh, this, but you also place it in a spot that really, like, it's just not helpful. So, there we go. So, another thing is the house to the left, you visit it, and there's another riddle. Basically, it said something along the lines of, like, I'm as tall as a tree, but I have no roots and shit. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, they must be referring to mountain peaks. Especially since there's literally a peak tile right above the house. I tried to visit that, and nothing happened, but then I realized that there's an even bigger mountain to the top left of the map. And I tried that, and I was like, oh, there's a thing there. Anyway, here's some Malcolm. And, you know, this shows that Malcolm, you know, he keeps score of who owes who and stuff. And, I don't know, he seems like an alright character. And for no reason, Bram's just like, oh, he's arrogant. And it's just like, you're welcome, dude. Fuck you. Like, he's helping you out and you're calling him arrogant behind his back. Ugh. I don't know. It's not too bad, though. So yeah, right here, this is the second time the chapter mentions a Gurgerson, or whatever the fuck it's called. I assume that's what the bear is, the bear at the start of the chapter. This is the second time the chapter tells you that, oh, those guys are strong. And I can tell you right now that the chapter does not need to tell me that at all. Because if at some point a Gurgerson or whatever the fuck shows up on the map, I can just check his stats and be like, oh, okay, I should not fuck with him. So yeah, having Bram mention it and also having one of the villagers mentioning it is not necessary. I'd argue that, I'd say most of the, half the houses that are provided in this chapter and some of the interact conversations don't really need to be there. I mean, they're helpful in case the player misses some useful information, but some of the information the player's gonna find out long before they use the talk events or the house events. And I don't know. I just think it could be handled more efficiently, I guess. Pardon me, let me just take a drink. Sorry, my throat's dry. There's not much else to say about this chapter. It's just us. At this point, this was actually my first time getting past the initial rush of enemies. So for the rest of the chapter, I was just endlessly fucking paranoid. When I saw that nomadic trooper, that nomad, I was like, oh, fuck my asshole. But yeah, he's not too much of a threat. And then after him, I don't think there's anything else in the chapter. Except for the boss, who... The bear dude called him Leatherskin, so I can only assume that he's like a reptile, possibly a Viperian, as the game explains. They're the only mentioned reptile species throughout the game, so I'm assuming he's Viperian. He has an awkward boss conversation, though. Let's see, right here. He's just like, oh, pack against one? Oh, well, I'm not here to kill you anyway. I'm not sure why he needs to announce that to us as he pokes us in the fucking face with a javelin. Especially since some of our units have permadeath and will die even like in the cutscene of their death quote. They won't be like, oh, I'll stand in the back lines while I heal or something. Some of them just straight up die. So it's just like, it's a misleading boss quote, but whatever, it's a fucking... I'm nitpicking at this point because that's all I can really do. Oh, wait. What are these two gonna do? Insult each other some more and bicker? Yep, that's what I fucking expected. Ugh. These two characters need to spend less time around each other because they're kind of... I kind of want to smack them both in the fucking face. You know, when characters bicker, it's supposed to be entertaining and shit. I don't think Ghast has quite mastered the art of having characters bicker enough. If he wants to see it being done well, maybe he should watch some of my commentaries with Evil Ego Awful. Specifically, the Castlevania Dracula X videos. Oh, and this guy's just like, oh! I've been defeated. He says oof, which is amusing to me for some reason. Anyway, that's the chapter. Now we get to talk about the ending cutscene. So yeah, this is a pretty cool scene. Bram is having none of this guy's shit, and he's like, oh, so you were the one who was speaking to me and fucking with my head. Well, I'm gonna want some answers from you. Just fucking grabs him. Even though it doesn't look like he grabbed the dude at all, you'd think Ghast would have put the portraits right next to each other or something. Kind of like how they did in FE7 when Effidel grabbed, like, Nils, for example. But yeah, so Bram's like, talk, bitch, I'm gonna smack the shit out of you. And this guy's like, you know, you could just kill me and then you won't know the information, so I'm not in any danger here. Bram's like, oh, you know, I won't kill you, but I'll just beat the fucking shit out of you until you speak up. And then he slips out of Bram's arms, probably because he's a reptile dude and he's slippery and shit. Oh, shit, a name drop. I just belched, sorry. Ortis. So Bram's name is Ortis. I can tell because Ghast felt the need to spell it out by having Bram have a thought bubble where he's like, how did he know? Again, as I said before in the previous chapter, I feel like Ghast he's giving us too much information and also spoon-feeding us instead of just showing rather than telling. So that is kind of a weak point of the story, in my opinion. There's no sense of mystery. But I've already said this. Dewey's tuckered out and so am I. Marky Joe 1990 signing out. No, wait, we still have 24 seconds in this video. Woo! Oh, wait, no, we're done, see? Interim, our world Woo! What does that mean? What are these big words? Find out next time on Marky Joe Plays Bloodlines, I guess. Bye. I need someone to review my FE hack. He needs to be someone who won't cut me slack. It's Marky Joe, he's arrived from his golden chariot, and down he walks the